Hey everyone, it's Shawn, and welcome to week 3 of What Would Shawn Do? And we're going to continue on with this same file that we've been working on. If you missed any of the last 2 weeks, they're up on YouTube. You can see in the email link, or if you go to YouTube and look for Your Excel Tutor, all one word together, you should be able to find them. But I'll have links if you get in the email, or if you go to my Facebook page, Your Excel Tutor, you'll be able to find them there. So what we're going to do today is we've got this file. Last week we worked on some data validation for these drop downs. We did some other fun stuff with conditional formatting, changing these cells so that the whole row would highlight, things like that. Today what we're going to do is something I do for a lot of files like this, which is if I'm going to be inputting data, in this case I'd like to have the most recent thing up at the top. And so rather than, one way to put a new line in is to just click on this, do insert row, or copy this row and insert one, and then wipe it out and put your text in there. You could go to the bottom. I don't like doing the bottom thing because the more rows that you add in there, the more difficult that gets, and it gets kind of complicated going to the bottom. So what I usually do is I'll make a macro. I'll make a little button, and I'll create a macro that's gonna basically do the same thing. Insert a row, and it's gonna fill in today's date. If there's anything else that can automatically be filled in, I can do that. Some files I do have other things like that have automatic things that get filled in. In this case, it's just going to be the date, but we could play around with that as well. So the first thing to know is if you're working with macros, and we haven't touched on macros yet, this is the first week as far as this series goes, you have to save your files as an XLSM extension. So if you can see right here, Excel file example, you can't see the top here, but it's a .xlsm, and normally when you create a file, by default it's going to be .xlsx, and that is a not macro enabled, so you can't create macros in there and run them. So most of the files I create I save them as a XLSM so that I can use macros, and it's a quick way to know, hey, this thing might have a macro. And then if it does have macros, then there's settings for if you get a file and you go to open it, there's macro settings to either automatically run it or only run it if you say to run it. That way, if someone sends you a new file, they can't put something in there that's going to be harmful to your computer. So the first thing is if you're working on a file, go to File, Save As, and then when you save it, select the .xlsm extension, and you can even save it as the same file name that you have, but that way you can then begin to build a macro in there. So this one is already XLSM. The other thing is, by default, if you look in this ribbon, usually this developer tab on the ribbon is not there by default, and I think it's probably for the same reason. Most people are not going to get into that, so rather than cause confusion or whatever, let's leave it turned off. So if you don't have it in yours, you can right click up in here, go to customize a ribbon, and you'll get this dialog box that pops up, and you're going to go down here, and in this case yours would maybe be like this, so you just click it. I'm going to drag this up. You can't see it, but I hit OK, and then developer shows up. So it's just a whole series of things that are in there that are just related to macros and Visual Basic and things like that. So a higher level of stuff than you would usually use when you're working with the file. So once we have developer in there, that opens us up to some things over here. So we have this record macro, and if you look in the bottom left, you're also going to see it down here. And so we're just going to use this. What we're going to do, this is, I've been using Visual Basic and macros for a while, so a lot of times I'll just start from scratch in the back and just start writing stuff. But there are some times that I still start with what I used to do in the beginning, which is what I'd recommend for you, which is if you've never really gotten into macros, the first way to do it is to record something, and I'll show you how to do that in a second, and then go in and look at how it translated that into its own speech on the background. And that's how you can tweak things, and then you can start to learn how stuff works and create your own customized versions of that. So what we're going to do is I'll tell you what we're going to do before we do it here. We're going to record a macro, and then we're going to copy this row, and then we're going to paste it right above between these two. We're going to wipe that row out, but then we're going to put today's date in here where this is. I'll show you one way to do it. There's another way you can do it on the back end, but put the date in there, and then we're going to go over to here, and that's where the cursor is going to stop. After we do that, then we're going to create a button up on top here, and then we'll set it up so that if you want to make a new line, you just click the button, it'll make a new line for us. So all right, so we'll get started here. We'll come down here, we'll hit record, and this dialog box pops up. We're going to say new line. It has to be no spaces, so you hit OK. If you want to put a description, you can do that. I usually don't. So we hit OK. So now we're recording, and this thing changes to a stop. So it's not doing anything right now because I haven't done anything. If I scroll, or if I move things around, or if I click in different cells, it'll start to record different things that I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is just like we talked about. I'm going to highlight this row. I'm going to right click, go to copy, and I'm going to right click again. I'm going to go to insert copied cells, and it's going to drop it right above. And then I'm going to highlight this again. I'm going to hit my delete key. So notice that's different than right clicking and hit delete. If you do this, it'll actually delete the whole row. We just want to delete the content. So that'd be the same as doing, if we undo this, if I right click and go clear contents, that's going to do the same thing that I just did by hitting the small under lowercase delete key on the keyboard. So then we're going to do something looks a little weird, but I'll explain it here in a second. So we're going to type in a formula that says today, and that will, if you ever want to use this, that'll automatically give you today's date. So today is the 18th of October. But then we're going to copy this. So copy, and we're going to paste just the values. So we go over here to values. So what that did was, now I have, instead of a formula, I have today's date. And so that macro is recording all this. So it's going to create the new row, it's going to wipe everything out, it's going to put the today's date in, and then save it as a value. That way, if I open this up tomorrow, I don't want that cell to show tomorrow's date. You know, I want it to freeze it as today's date. And then the last thing we're going to do is just going to put the cursor here, highlight that cell, and we'll hit stop. Okay, so that macro now has been recorded, and if we want to look at it, we can come up here to Visual Basic, or if you want to run the macro, you can go to Macros, and you'll see it right there. If you want to look at it, you go to Visual Basic, and okay, you're missing a lot of this, I see, but we'll pull this up, and you can see they call these modules. That's where they store the macro stuff. There's subroutine, new line is the one we created. And this is what it translated in. So it highlighted row 3, it copied it, it inserted that row where we were and dropped the next one down. And then we highlighted that row again. And this is going to show everything because I did an undo and all that stuff. Clear contents, we cleared out the row, and then we did, this is where we typed in the today command, and then we came and we copied that, and then we pasted that, just the values, and then we selected the next cell. So this is going to look weird because this is Excel's way of translating the things that we did. It's important to know, what it did. Once you see how it does it, then you can adapt that and you can try your own thing. So if we go back to our front page here, so now we've got that. If we wanted to run it, we could go here, macros, we could just run it. It's going to make a new one. Let's delete these two out here. But now we're going to attach it to a button. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You could go to developer, go to insert. There's a whole toolbox of things in here. Don't mess, if you're going here, don't mess with the ones on the bottom. That's like even a higher level. Like those won't do anything for you right now. These can do things for you, and you don't need a macro for some of them. We'll get to those maybe in a future video. So you can either come in here and click this like this and bring a button in and pick your cell, and we could just do this and say add new line, which my graphics are not catching up there. So if we do that, that's one way to do it. And now if we click off of there, notice when I highlight over it, it's going to run something. So I click that, and there it goes, runs that. We're going to delete that. That's one way to do it. What I prefer is to go into insert and, oh boy, insert. With the shrunk screen, I can't find stuff the same as I can on a full screen. So insert shapes, and I usually just like to bring a text box in here because I can do more with the text box and make it look more like how I want it to. So we'll say add new line, and we're going to center that text vertically and horizontally. We'll make it a little bigger. So let's highlight all of it, make it bigger, kind of bold there. And then I'm going to go in here to the shape format, and we'll just make it look like that. And maybe we'll add some a shadow on there, so it looks more like a button. Now notice when I highlight over it, when I hover over it, nothing happens yet. It's because we haven't assigned a macro to it. So you have to click on it, right click, and you get this menu, and it's off the bottom of the menu. Bummer. All right, so if you go down here where you can't see, it says assign macro. There's an option on there, assign macro, and you get to that, you click here, click OK. Now they're tied. Now when I hover over here, you get that. So I like this version better because I can make it look however I want, and that way I can make different colored buttons. I can adjust them a lot more, that version. So that's all we're going to do in this one. I know it's this ran long, but if you've never done macros especially, this is just a quick way to do a simple one that can accomplish something quicker, save you a step. So now you click a button instead of maybe 4 or 5 steps. And it's all about consolidating steps, saving yourself any repetition that you do. If you can automate that, we'll get more into that with future videos because there's so much more there. There's things where it's almost like artificial intelligence in a sense where you can have Excel look for you to click in certain cells or do certain things and have it trigger macros based on that. And that's when it gets really cool because it can almost anticipate, and you don't even have to click a button. It can do something based on your actions and things that you select to automatically run stuff. So yeah, love you to check this out, try it out on your own file. Let me know if you've got any questions. If you want a version of this file, I can send it to you. Just shoot me back a message if you're getting this by email, or reach out to me at yourexceltutor.com and go to my contact page. You can shoot me a message there as well. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.